Iris Wellington had a gift for hearing what a song could become before it ever found its chorus. At 35, she was a senior music executive in Nashville, sharp suit, sharper instincts, spending her days turning raw demos into radio-ready stories, and her nights pretending she didn't notice how quiet her condo felt when the meetings stopped. For 4.5 years she'd been Iris Blackmon on paper, married to Terrance Blackmon, 37, a Tennessee and Georgia entrepreneur with a smile built for billboards, and a network of luxury car dealerships that seemed to multiply every quarter. Terrance loved speed. Fast cars, fast deals, fast promises. Iris had loved him anyway, believing that if she kept one steady thing in the marriage, he'd eventually learn how to be steady too. Then came the headline without a headline. A whispered name at a charity gala, a lipstick mark on a collar that wasn't Iris's shade, a friend of a friend, who thought Iris already knew. When she confronted Terrance, he didn't deny the affair. He just stood in their kitchen and said the other woman was pregnant, like he was reporting the time and not the end of a life. Iris packed in the quiet hours before dawn, when the city outside still looked forgiving. She didn't throw his suits off hangers or break glass. She simply took her records, her notebooks, the photograph of her late father, and the ring that had started to feel like a lie. The divorce papers moved quickly after that, Terrance's lawyers efficient, Iris's resolve unshakable. Months later, the truth arrived in the most Nashville way possible, in a recording studio hallway between a producer's laugh and the click of a coffee machine. Iris's friend Alicia, an entertainment attorney who had seen every kind of messy, caught her by the elbow and said, "I wasn't going to bring it up, but I can't not tell you. The mistress wasn't pregnant. She'd staged the whole thing. Fake ultrasound photos, a carefully timed announcement, even a rented baby bump for a brunch where someone Terrance knew just happened to be seated nearby." The twist was that Terrance hadn't seen any of this coming. He'd believed her because believing was easier than admitting he'd already wrecked his own marriage. When the truth surfaced, it didn't undo the damage, but it did crack something open in him. Shame sharp enough to make him stop running. He cut ties, cleaned up the mess he could, and, too late for the paperwork, started doing the slow work of becoming a better man. Her man again. Iris didn't hear any of that from gossip. She heard it from Terrance himself 6 weeks later, when he asked, through Alicia, respectfully, for 10 minutes, and a neutral place. They met in the lobby of a studio Iris used for listening sessions, where plaques lined the walls like quiet witnesses. Terrance looked smaller without his swagger, his hands empty, his voice careful. "I'm not here to win you back," he said. "I'm here to tell you the truth. I cheated. I lied. I let someone turn a lie into a weapon, and I handed it to her." For a moment, Iris just stared at him, as if he'd grown a second head. She didn't know what to do with his words, his honesty, his vulnerability. So she did the only thing she could. She sat there and let the silence stretch until it felt like a verdict. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but deliberate. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for the accountability. But," she paused, steadying herself, "it doesn't undo the pain. It doesn't lessen the humiliation. It doesn't put my world back together." The words came faster after that, heat rising in her chest. Not just anger, something harder, resolve. "I gave you every part of me. You didn't have to ask. You made a suggestion, an observation, and I contorted myself to fit whatever you expected, and in return, you took my love, you took my trust, you took my well-being. You extracted what pleased you and discarded the rest. You discarded me, you discarded us." "I don't hate you," she continued. She noticed his shoulders ease a fraction. She didn't know what that meant, and she decided she didn't care enough to find out. "But I don't like you, or what you represent. So after tonight I have no intention of allowing you access to me again." Her eyes stayed fixed. Her breathing stayed measured, replacing calm rage with resolve. With that, she stood and left. Terrance sat motionless, afraid that if he moved, the weight of her words, her true words, would crush him. Outside, sealed inside her car, Iris could no longer control what she'd held back. Tears slid down her face, as if they were offering a salve to smooth the rawest parts of her wounds. She stayed there for 45 minutes, trying to right her world, trying to convince herself that everything that needed to be said and done had, in fact, been said and done. The next morning, Terrance stood in his kitchen with a feasibility report spread across the counter, numbers proving that his rental housing development would be profitable. He read each line over and over, not to understand it, but because he couldn't hold his focus long enough for the words to land. His mind drifted back to their bedroom at the very moment he could no longer explain away his mistress, Sandra. Iris was quiet. When she spoke, her voice broke. "Is this true? Are you having an affair with her?" she asked, trembling and weak. "She's pregnant," he said simply. 12 weeks. I can't not be there for her." He said it more to himself than to Iris. Her whole body registered the blow. Brokenness, pain, the sudden realization that her marriage was over. Terrance couldn't look directly at her. The raw emotion in her eyes felt so hot it burned his skin. And even now he didn't know why he said what came next. "We can get through this," he told her. "But you have to accept Sandra. My child will be part of our lives. It's up to you, Iris. And there's no need for theatrics. None of it changes the facts." He said it like he was telling her they were out of milk. Back in the kitchen, Terrance exhaled a sound he didn't recognize, as if he could banish the memory forever. He forced his eyes back to the report, but Iris kept interrupting the margins of the page. Still beautiful, still smelling faintly of magnolia, as if she'd carried spring into a house he didn't deserve. God, he realized with a jolt that felt almost physical, she's still the love of his life. A sound tore out of him, primal, raw, painful. "What have I done?" he said aloud, the question stripping him bare. "How did I let this become my normal?" Across town, Iris sat in her office, listening to a marketing strategy presentation for their latest artist. She nodded at the right places, took the notes she was supposed to take, and still couldn't shake the image of Terrance sitting across from her the night before. So small, so humbled, so defeated. He didn't resemble the same man who believed money superseded everything. The man who told her he had an image, a reputation, and that the extra weight she'd picked up was interfering with it. "Handle it," he'd said. It was only £10, her normal fluctuation threshold, she tried to explain. "Handle it," he repeated, harder the second time. The man who admitted he'd planned to marry someone else, then decided Iris would be more manageable. The man who could profess love and deliver soul-shaking insults in the same breath. The man who treated people like inconveniences to tolerate, and who somehow convinced her that being his wife was a favor he'd done for her, not the partnership he owed her. Still, something had broken in Terrance. Iris couldn't name it, and she couldn't tell whether the fracture was temporary, or the trigger that would finally usher in real change. She shook herself, as if she could physically remove him from the room, and forced her attention back to the voices still talking about ad buys and audience segments. Later that week, Alicia slid into the booth across from Iris with a smile laced with mischief. "Guess who I saw yesterday at the farmer's market," she said. Iris didn't even look up from her drink. "You know I'm not going to guess, just tell me." "Girl, you will never guess, but try anyway." "Alicia, just tell me, I don't know." "Iris, you won't even try," Alicia said, half whining through her smile. Annoyed, Iris finally sighed. "Jesus, you saw Jesus and Biggie at the farmer's market yesterday." Alicia's smile wiped clean. She looked Iris dead in the face. "Really? I told you to guess, and you came up with Jesus and Biggie." Her voice tried for irritation but couldn't hold it. "Yep," Iris affirmed with a confident smirk. Then they both burst into laughter. "No, fool, I saw Terrance and his fine friend Kenji," Alicia said, watching Iris closely, like she could read a confession in the smallest shift of her face. "Oh," Iris said, "that's nice," suddenly finding her drink very interesting. "Yeah," Alicia continued. "He asked about you. I mean, he really asked about you." "Really?" Iris asked, praying her caramel skin hid the heat climbing up her neck. "What did you say, Alicia?" Alicia leaned back, pleased with herself. "I told him you were doing fine." "Great, really. He asked if you were married yet." "I told him you were seeing someone, but no wedding talk yet." And girl, when I said that man's face went through about 4 different expressions. Worry, disappointment, fear, and then pissed. "He tried to get me to tell him how long you and Rick had been together," Alicia said, exhausted from holding the story in. "I was like, sir, I am not going to tell you all my girl business. So he told me to tell you hi, and that he hopes you're doing okay. So here I am telling you hi for him." Iris rolled her eyes and sighed. "I can't with you, Alicia." A few nights later, Iris and Rick sat across a small dinner table at Audrey, the low light turning everything warm. Brass, burgundy, and the shine of wine glasses. She listened to the clink of cutlery, and the soft hum of conversation around them, trying to let the ordinary soothe her. She and Richard Rick had been dating for about 4 months. From the start, it had been predictable in the best way. Safe, steady, drama-free. Nothing like what she'd had with Terrance, and she liked that. They were settling into a routine, And Iris had always equated routine with security. Rick was in the middle of a story, work, cars, something, and she nodded at the right spots, laughed when he laughed. But her mind kept slipping back into the same loop, replaying Alicia's words from earlier that day. He asked if you were married yet. Why married? Why did Terrance want to know anything about her now? Focus, girl, she ordered herself. This was the kind of relationship you said you wanted. Safe. Rick, 34, was a physical therapist, 6 feet tall, honey brown complexion, soft eyes. Not overly muscular, but you could tell he made an effort to work out. Dependable. Steady. Peace. He was the opposite of Terrance, who was wealthy, 5'10", cinnamon brown, extremely fit, sculpted even, with eyes that always looked like they knew your deepest secrets and a smile that disarmed you before you realized you'd been cornered. Iris needed stability, the kind Rick offered without making her beg for it. Terrance had always called that need weakness. Tonight, across this table, she was trying to believe it could be strength. Across town, Terrance was on the phone with his business partner, talking through their next move into real estate, when something his partner said snapped his attention sharp. The Young Leaders of Global Change fundraiser, Terrance repeated, half to himself. Yeah, his partner said. I didn't want to say anything about it because your ex is one of the coordinators, but they're looking for donations for the silent auction, plus sponsors and other services. Oh, Terrance said, too calm. What are you thinking? I haven't given it much thought, his partner admitted. We'll donate a Lexus, a Genesis, and a Mercedes, Terrance said, matter of fact. We can decide the models later. What? His partner asked, genuinely stunned. Yeah. And see if they need transportation services, Terrance continued. If they do, we'll donate that too. I'll have Ms. Murphy put everything in motion. He ended the call before his partner could talk himself into a counter-argument. The fundraiser was in 3 months. He needed Ms. Murphy to get him a ticket to the dinner. That was where he'd begin his operation to get his wife back. It sounded cheesy, even in his own head, but it was the truth. Terrance wanted Iris back. He needed her back. 2 weeks out from the event, Iris was buried in the final details for the Young Leaders of Global Change fundraiser. Vendor confirmations, seating charts, sponsor follow-ups, and the 100 tiny decisions that determined whether a night ran smoothly or spiraled. She and Alicia had been working with the organization for 8 years, drawn to it because it served underserved youth with college prep, business coaching, and the kinds of resources they'd once needed themselves. Programs, like the ones they'd been fortunate enough to access when they were younger. Iris smiled when her thoughts turned to Alicia. They'd been friends since middle school, long before titles and paychecks, and Nashville's polished rooms. Before everything. After Iris's father died, she and her mother lost their home, and moved into Cheatham Place public housing on the north side of the city. Iris wasn't equipped for the harsh reality of the projects, or how quick trouble found you, how even your silence could be read as a challenge. Alicia came to her rescue on Iris's 5th day there, her 3rd time almost getting jumped for nothing more than existing. 2 very large girls had cornered Iris in the bathroom, their voices sharp and hungry. I must snatch you bald, one of them said. Before Iris could even decide whether to run or freeze, a voice cut through the noise, steady, fearless, like the heroine Iris used to read about in her graphic novels. I know ain't nobody in here trying to mess with my friend. Alicia pushed her way through the crowd that had formed in the doorway, already standing tall at her full 5'9", her locks, which she still wear today, pulled up in a neat ponytail, her rich ebony skin glowing under the dull fluorescent lights, one hand on her hip as she sized up the situation like she was calculating angles. Her gaze landed on the girls first, then softened, just a little, when she looked at Iris. This, my friend, Alicia said, loud enough for the whole bathroom to hear. My friend. She gave Iris a questioning look. Iris filled in the blank space and provided Alicia with her name, Iris. Iris, Alicia announced. Then she turned back to the 2 girls. So which one of y'all got a problem with her? Nobody, one of them muttered. Ain't nobody thinking about you or her. Alicia stepped closer to the bigger one anyway, unbothered. Well, I'm thinking about her. Iris is my girl, so if you mess with her, it's just like you messing with me. She tilted her head. So what we gon' do? She asked, slow and low, almost a whisper. The bigger girl rolled her eyes. Forget you, Alicia, she said, already turning to walk off. Alicia's voice sharpened. That's what I thought. And don't let me have to remind you again. 1. My name is Alicia, not Leisha. 2. Iris is my friend, my best friend, so act like you know. Alicia marched out of the bathroom, with Iris in tow. Once they were clear of the crowd, Alicia looked her up and down and said, "Girl, you gotta learn how to fight. If not, you gon' get your butt kicked every day." Iris blinked like Alicia was speaking a foreign language. Alicia took one more look, exhaled and softened. "Never mind. Just stick with me, you'll be fine." From that day on, they were inseparable. Iris learned early that Alicia was brilliant, quietly, dangerously smart. The two of them ended up on every academic achievement list, and it paid off. Full academic scholarships to Tennessee State University, Iris majoring in business, and Alicia on the pre-law track. Even their careers moved in the same circle. Iris landed at Prism Pulse label as a junior executive first. Alicia came on board a year later as counsel after she passed the bar. Outside of her mother, Alicia had been the one constant in Iris's life. When Iris's marriage imploded, and she showed up at Alicia's door at 1 o'clock in the morning, Alicia didn't offer pretty words or a speech about how Iris was better off. She just sat on the sofa beside her, and let Iris feel whatever she needed to feel to keep breathing. On the 7th day of Iris staying in bed, Alicia burst into the room, threw open the curtains, and said, "Girl, even Jesus got up on the 3rd day, and they killed him." Despite herself, Iris laughed, hard, the sound breaking through the grief like light, and thanked God for her rock, her friend, her sister, Alicia. Wait. Someone donated a Lexus RX SUV, a Genesis G70 Coupe, and a brand new Mercedes-Benz S-Class, Iris said, staring at the page in complete astonishment. "Who?" Alicia asked, reaching for the papers in Iris's hand. Iris's eyes moved back to the letterhead, Blackhawk and Associates. She read. Then, quieter, half to herself, "Terrance." Her confusion sharpened into something like intrigue. Terrance donated these cars and he didn't broadcast it on every social media platform, TV station and radio show. No, great Terrance Blackmon has done a great deed tour. The Terrance she knew wouldn't have donated anything, at least not without wanting something in return. Iris frowned at the page as if the ink might rearrange itself into a more familiar truth. "No, this isn't the Terrance I knew." "That's not all," Alicia said, scanning the rest of the paperwork. "He's offering transportation if we need it for guests traveling in from out of town. We'd have 6 cars with drivers at our disposal." At that, Iris grabbed her phone, then set it back down like it was hot. "No, don't call him. Let someone else on the committee reach out to him." "Not her." "Girl," Alicia said, cutting through Iris's thoughts. "What has gotten into the great Terrance Blackmon? He out here giving away cars and everything." She grinned. "Since he in the giving mood, tell him to throw one of those Benzes my way." "Alicia," Iris said, giving her friend a look of irritation wrapped in a smile. "Just contact the person listed in the letter to finalize the details." Later that afternoon, Terrance confirmed that Ms. Murphy had made the arrangements for the fundraiser. Satisfied that the first half of his plan was in motion, he turned his attention to the remainder. Everything he was doing went against how he'd been raised. Terrance was taught, by words and by example, that money equaled power, and that you protected that power by never giving anything away without getting something of equal or greater value in return. He watched his father use influence with the precision of a surgeon, treating people, including Terrance and his mother, like tools to be used at his discretion. He watched his mother endure his father's affairs, the paternity suits, the suspicious miscarriages that followed, and the occasional slap when she, or Terrance, committed the slightest infraction. Being born into the Blackmon logistics empire was the foundation Terrance had been built on, but he'd come to realize the money, the wealth, and the status were only a small part of what mattered. Not sharing your life, or your resources, with someone who loved you, made everything ring empty. Iris stood in the middle of her closet and looked at the dress Alicia had talked her into buying. The deep, bronze, strapless gown dipped low at the neckline and hugged the right places on her 5'3" frame. According to Alicia, it was the perfect complement to Iris's amber skin. Her short cropped hair was cut in sharp angles that accentuated her delicate features. Her small, dark brown eyes always looked like they were holding a secret she refused to share. Iris slipped into the gown, fighting the urge to take it right back off. It felt too revealing, too tight. "Why do I listen to that girl?" she asked herself, studying her reflection. She finished her makeup and, rare for her, added lipstick, bronze, glossy. She smoothed her hair until every strand was in place, slipped on 4-inch heels, fastened her diamond earrings and necklace, and finished with her favorite perfume. Satisfied with the final result, she headed for the Music City Center. Music City Center was a fury of activity. The 2K a plate fundraiser was close to capacity. Almost everyone the foundation had invited was there. Business people, artists, politicians. The silent auction line snaked past the displays, people angling to win one of the cars Terrance had donated. This is good, Iris thought. 90 minutes in, she realized she'd worn the wrong shoes for all the running around, but she refused to let her aching feet slow her down. She couldn't let anything slow her down tonight. Then she spotted him, Terrance. He stood in the doorway as if he were looking for someone. He wore all black, jacket, shirt and slacks tailored to perfection, the expensive fabric accenting his sculpted frame. Iris stopped short. Her breath caught, heat sliding up her spine. A voice to her right purred. "He looks good, don't he, girl?" Sharina said, wearing the most devilish grin Iris had ever seen. Iris jumped, truly startled. "He looks like he always does," she said, hoping Alicia would drop it, knowing that was wishful thinking. "You gonna say hi?" Sharina asked, the smile still in place. Then she squinted past Iris's shoulder. "Yes, and he brought that fine Kenji with him." She abandoned her previous conversation like it had never happened, and grabbed Iris by the arm. "Come on, let's go say hi." Terrance saw them walking toward him, and his chest tightened. He cleared his throat and adjusted his stance. "You good, man?" Kenji asked with a mischievous grin. Yeah, Terrance repeated, trying to convince himself as much as he was answering. Then his eyes locked on Iris like no one else existed. Hello, Iris said, irritated by how breathless she sounded. Her eyes stayed fixed on him. Alicia broke the spell they were weaving. "Hello," she sang, exaggerating the word as she looked from Terrance to Iris and back again. Terrance blinked a few times, trying to ground himself. "What's up, Alicia?" he said, leaning in to hug her. "Hi," Alicia responded. "Hey lady," Kenji said, hugging Alicia warmly before turning to Iris. "What's your table number?" Iris asked, her eyes bright with anticipation. 19, Terrance replied. "Oh, I can take you there," Iris offered with a smile, turning to lead the way. The night was a resounding success. They raised $2.5 million, exceeding their goal by $500K. Iris felt a surge of joy and pride. The evening had been a whirlwind of emotion and achievement. Yet amidst the celebration, a twinge of guilt tugged at her. She had only managed to steal a few fleeting moments with Rick. He was gracious and understanding, but she couldn't help but notice the tension that flickered across his face whenever she followed his line of sight and found he was watching Terrance. And Terrance, he was impossible to ignore. His eyes seemed to be fixed on her the entire night. Every time she glanced up, there he was, watching her intently, following her every move. It made her acutely aware of his presence, stirring a mixture of curiosity and unease. Alicia, who had been observing quietly, leaned in and whispered to Iris, "He's got his eyes on you all night. Be careful, girl." Iris's heart fluttered with a strange blend of fear and confusion, as if her body already knew tonight was just the beginning of something more complex than she could ever anticipated. The next morning, Iris sat at her kitchen island, sipping her herbal tea. Her feet still ached from the previous night, and her stomach was demanding attention. Suddenly, there was a knock at her door. She glanced at her security camera, curious about who could be visiting her this time of morning. Though as she looked at the clock, she realized it was already 11:30 a.m. Not so early after all. "Yes, I'm coming," she called out. "Delivery for Ms. Wellington," a voice responded. She opened the door to find a large bouquet of her favorite flowers, peonies, gardenias and lilies, sitting on the ground, accompanied by a note. Standing in her hallway were a personal chef and a masseuse, both poised and ready. Completely confused yet excited, she picked up the note and read it, her mind racing, thinking it was from Rick. The note said, "I remember how you are the day after these events, back in knots, feet tender, and an appetite of a small army. Enjoy. TPS. You looked beautiful last night." Iris stared at the note, then back at the chef and masseuse, her heart pounding. She looked at the note again, fighting to process what was happening. "Terrance," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly as she tried to reconcile the gesture with the person who sent it. Both the chef and masseuse asked, "Where to set up?" Iris pointed them to their respective destinations, still in shock, her mind swirling with questions. She reached for her phone and dialed Terrance. "Hello," he answered, his voice smooth and warm, like the most refined Tennessee whiskey. "Terrance," she began, her voice shaky. "What are you trying to do?" He chuckled softly. Appreciate the incredible accomplishment of a beautiful, smart woman, he replied. His words softened the sting that had settled in her, easing some of her tension. Well, thank you, but you didn't have to do all this, she said, her voice softer than she intended. No problem, he said kindly. Just know I see you, and I'm proud of you. Iris hesitated, then quipped, okay, I know I'm talking to a clone now, and ended with, goodbye, Terrance. She could hear the smile in his voice. Enjoy, Iris, you deserve it. The call ended, and the masseuse's soothing touch and the aroma of the food, crab cakes, grits, waffles, fresh fruits, fluffy eggs and endless mimosas, lifted her spirits. Iris couldn't remember the last time she felt so relaxed, so pampered, or had enjoyed such incredible food. She curled up on her sofa, drifting into a peaceful nap, and just before she closed her eyes, she texted Terrance again. Really, thank you. His reply was immediate. You're welcome. Iris closed her eyes, savoring the peaceful moment, feeling a warmth she hadn't known in a long time, but even in her bliss a voice of caution whispered in her mind. Be careful, girl. This is the same man who broke your heart and blew up your marriage with his cheating. Don't fall for whatever he's trying to do. Sleep came fast after that. Monday morning, Iris sat with Alicia in her office, recounting the events of the weekend, the flowers, the masseuse, the chef, and the note. As she finished, Alicia let out a loud yell that made Iris jump up and quickly close her door. Shush, girl, Iris whispered. You act like we are not at work. Alicia leaned in, eyes gleaming with curiosity. So what are you going to do, girl? Iris hesitated, then shook her head. Nothing. Look, it took me a year to get over that whole Terrance thing. I can't put myself back in that kind of dysfunction again. Alicia raised an eyebrow. Yeah, but maybe he has changed. Maybe he realized he messed up badly and is trying to make things right. Or at least let you know he's truly sorry. Iris sighed, her expression tense. I don't doubt he's sorry. Well, as much as he's capable of being. But what I do doubt is that he's really changed. Men like Terrance don't change. They observe, figure out what they can use, and manipulate that for their own selfish gain, she said, bitterness slipping into her voice. No, Iris said softly. I am with Rick, and I am going to focus on nurturing what we have. A slow smile formed on Alicia's face. Do whatever you have to do to convince yourself that you don't have feelings for that man. Iris looked away, the words hanging in the air, heavy with unspoken emotion. Hi, Rick, Iris said softly, sensing that something was off. Rick cleared his throat, hesitating for a moment. Iris, he said slowly, I think you are an amazing person, and I've really enjoyed our time together, but I don't think we want the same thing. He is breaking up with her on a video call, she thought. Rick cleared his voice again, and Iris refocused her full attention on him. I think we should take a break, he said, his tone careful. Giving us, time to figure out what we really want. There it was. Rick was breaking up with her. And deep down, she didn't blame him. Since the fundraiser, Iris had to admit, her mind had been preoccupied. Terrance had been relentless. Flowers delivered weekly to her home and office, lunches sent, along with texts just checking in, seeing how she was doing. Gifts, perfumes, clothes, tickets to concerts, all for her to invite whomever she wanted to attend. It was becoming harder and harder for Iris to dismiss his persistent gestures. I understand, she said quietly, her voice steady despite the small disappointment. I wish you the best, Rick. He nodded, a sad smile on his face. Me too. Goodbye, Iris. Goodbye, Rick. They both hung up, the silence lingering in the air, heavy. Iris took a deep breath, called Alicia and told her about Rick. I am on my way, Alicia said. 45 minutes later, Alicia arrived at Iris's door, with the appropriate snacks and a bottle of wine. They spent the rest of the night talking about everything and nothing. Sharing secrets, laughter, and tears. Iris admitted she wasn't that upset about Rick. She was confused about Terrance, but what scared her the most was the feeling that all of this might be just a game Terrance was playing. Alicia confided that she and Kenji had been seeing each other, taking it slow, but committed. They giggled like two teenage girls gossiping about their crushes. Iris urged her, tell me everything, every conversation, every date, every kiss. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity and excitement with each detail Alicia shared. I'm so happy for you, Iris said sincerely, her heart swelling with sisterly warmth. Then, a moment of silence settled between them. Iris, Alicia said softly, You're going to have to face whatever is going on with you and Terrance. You know that this thing with him is part of why Rick broke things off. Iris sighed deeply. I know. But I don't know what to do. We haven't even had a proper face-to-face talk, but he's gotten under my skin, and I can't shake him. Then talk to him, Alicia advised gently. Figure out what you really want next. You're right, Iris admitted quietly. The next day, Iris reached out and invited Terrance to lunch. They agreed to meet at her office at 1 p.m. He arrived at 12:45 p.m., looking dangerously handsome, dressed in a tailored charcoal grey suit, a black shirt that hugged his frame perfectly, and shiny black Italian shoes that looked wet. The scent of leather and smoke lingered around him, and the sight of him instantly left Iris a bundle of nerves. Over lunch, their conversation was slow and cautious, each word carefully measured. When the small talk could no longer delay the inevitable, Terrance looked at her and spoke, voice thick with remorse. Iris, I am so sorry. You didn't deserve the way I treated you, what I did. I was a fool, stupid and reckless. There's no excuse except that I was just plain stupid. I know I don't have the right to ask for your forgiveness, and I'm not asking now, but I hope, one day, you'll consider forgiving me. And if you can't, please, just don't hate me. His words burst out like a volcano erupting, surprising even himself with the force behind them. Iris sat there, stunned, unsure of what to do with the flood of emotion that his words unleashed. Terrance, she said softly, I don't hate you. I don't know how I feel about you, but I don't hate you. I've already forgiven you, at least I'm working on it, but if you're looking for anything more than friendship, I can't give you that, she added, her gaze dropping to her plate, hoping her words sounded convincing, even though doubt gnawed at her. I understand, Terrance said, his words lacking conviction. Fair enough, he replied softly. I don't even deserve that, so I'm grateful for whatever you're willing to give. They returned to their small talk, but this time, it was less guarded, more genuine, an unspoken understanding lingering in the air. Terrance walked her back to her office. Once inside, he hesitated for a moment, then looked at her with a tentative smile. Can we go to dinner tomorrow night? He asked. After a brief pause, Iris nodded. Sure. Great, he said, relief flickering across his face. I'll pick you up at 7:30. Then, as if contemplating the weight of what he was about to do, Terrance leaned in and hugged her softly. His lips brushed her forehead gently. Thank you, Iris, he whispered, still holding her in his arms. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into him, instinct taking over. The heat between them was undeniable. He looked down at her, fighting to stay in control. It was as if an invisible force, like a magnet, was pulling his lips to hers, brushing them softly, slowly. He gave her time to protest, to pull away, to push him back, but she didn't. Her hand cupped his face as she stood on her tiptoes, meeting his kiss. Terrance groaned softly, whispering her name as their kiss deepened, passion overtaking hesitation, hunger replacing uncertainty. She clung to him because her legs could no longer support her. He held her so tightly, as if he was afraid she would run away. Baby, I have to go. You're killing me, he whispered, his voice thick with longing. I won't be responsible if I stay. Determined not to lose control, he gently placed his hands on her shoulders and created space between them. Just then, Alicia knocked and walked into Iris's office. Ooh, Alicia said, surveying the scene with a teasing smile. Both Iris and Terrance quickly jumped apart, trying to create distance. Iris cleared her throat, flustered. He was just leaving. I was walking him to the, yeah. He was just leaving. She stammered, her words trailing off. Terrance stood silently, trying to gather himself. So that's what you're calling it now, just leaving? Alicia said, barely containing her amusement at her friend's discomfort. Terrance started toward the door, then paused, and turned back to Iris. Thank you for lunch. I'll call you later if that's okay, he asked, lingering just long enough for her to acknowledge his words. Iris offered a small smile, and nodded her head. As he walked out of her office, Alicia glared at her, propping herself on Iris's desk. Girl, what did I walk into? She asked, eyes narrowing with curiosity and amusement. Nothing. You walked into nothing, Iris replied, trying to ignore the heat that Terrance's body and hands had left behind, still lingering in her mind. A lapse in judgment, Iris added, attempting to sound unbothered, though every cell in her body was still trembling with the aftermath of what had just happened. "It won't happen again, I hope." The last part was not spoken out loud. "Okay, girl," Alicia said, her voice playful but knowing. "But I know what I saw, and that was nothing." "No, that was something. A whole lot of something," she teased. "It's nothing, Alicia," Iris said, uncertainty evident in her voice. Alicia opened her mouth to say more, but Iris cut her off. "No, just close it." Alicia let her full humor show, a sly smile curling on her lips. "Close it? Why, Miss Wellington, it's your legs you need to make sure stay close," she said with a hearty laugh, then turned to walk out of Iris's office. "Get out," Iris called after her, mock anger in her voice. Once Alicia was gone, Iris was left with a flood of emotions, so many, she didn't know where to start. She pushed them down, deciding to deal with them later. Meanwhile, Terrance was battling his own internal chaos. He was fighting the urge to run down the street screaming, "She kissed me back! She kissed me back!" The image of her lips, the feel of her body pressed against him, replayed in his mind on a relentless loop. He kept replaying the kiss until it was seared into his brain. He wanted to call her, to go to her, to have her come to him. He brought his shirt up to his nose, inhaling deeply, savoring the sweet fragrance of her perfume, magnolia. The scent haunted him, a reminder of the moment they just shared. "Hello," Iris said softly. "Hi, Iris," Terrance replied, a hint of nervousness in his voice. Silence hung between them. Terrance began slowly, then hesitated. "I'd like to cook for you," he said more sheepishly than he intended. Another pause. "If..." he started again, then stopped, taking a breath. "If you like, I can bring everything to your place, you know, if it makes you more comfortable." He held his breath, waiting. Iris exhaled slowly. "Terrance, you cook?" she asked, a mixture of amusement and genuine curiosity in her voice. "The almost 6 years we were together, I only knew you to reheat pizza," Iris finished, a playful smile on her face. "Now you want to cook for me?" Terrance let out a tight breath, relief washing over him. She hadn't said no. "I've got skills, ma'am," he said, a bit surprised at how relieved he was that she didn't immediately decline. Iris replied, "Okay. At my place, so I can have easy access to the Pepto-Bismol," she added with a smile that was almost audible. "So you've got jokes," he said, grinning. "Tonight, I'll be at your place at 7. Be prepared to be blown away by Michelin-star Terrance," he declared, unable to hide the happiness in his voice. "It's a date, Ms. Wellington," he added. "No, it's dinner," she countered softly. "Noted," he said. "See you at 7. "Okay, see you then." Iris sat quietly for a moment, trying to examine her emotions. Everything in her was telling her to stop. Don't keep engaging him. But she found herself accepting every phone call, every invitation for lunch or dinner, responding to every text and voice note. She knew she needed to put a stop to this. Tonight, she would tell him he needed to stop with the tickets to shows and concerts. Not that he ever asked her to go with him. He always said, "I remember you liked this person or that group," suggesting she and Alicia could go instead. That gesture intrigued and confused Iris. The Terrance she knew didn't give anyone anything without expecting something in return. That last thought made her pause. What was Terrance's endgame, she wondered. A knock at her office door. Delivery for Ms. Wellington. Her weekly floral arrangement from Terrance, along with 2 tickets to see the Black Violin Experience. The note read, "I know how you used to enjoy these guys. Seeing your joy is what I enjoy. T." Iris closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, savoring the fragrant, sweet smell of the flowers. When she opened her eyes, Alicia was standing in the doorway, with the most devilish smile on her face. "I see legs opening in the near future, and I'm not talking about mine," Alicia said. "Get out! Get out!" Iris exclaimed, standing now with one hand on her hip, and the other directing Alicia towards the door, both of them laughing. Iris invited Terrance to go with her to see the Black Violin Experience, expecting him to decline. To her surprise, he showed up and seemed genuinely to enjoy it. They left the concert together and headed back to his house. But as soon as she stepped inside, Iris's stomach clenched. The house flooded her mind with every bad experience. Harsh words, strategic put-downs masked as concern, moments of disappointment and pain. It hit her like a wave, visceral and overwhelming. She wanted to leave. She needed to go. Sensing her discomfort, Terrance reached out gently. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. "No," she admitted, voice trembling. "The memories in this house, they're crushing." A flicker of hurt crossed his face, and she immediately felt remorse. "I'm sorry," she said hurriedly. "Let me take you home," he said. They rode in silence, both sensing that words were inadequate for this moment. When he pulled up to her place, he got out to open her door. But before he could, she was already outside, standing beside the car. "I'm sorry, Iris," Terrance said remorsefully, his voice thick with regret. "I won't put you through that again." He leaned in and kissed her forehead softly. She flinched, and he immediately stopped, understanding. He gently took her hand and walked her to her condo, giving her space and time to process. Later that evening he called her. Their conversation was slow but steady, each word carefully chosen. They made plans to see each other later in the week. They avoided mentioning the house, leaving the pain behind, for now, in quiet understanding. Terrance had Ms. Murphy reschedule all his afternoon meetings. Tonight was special. He did not want to mess this up. The stakes were high. One wrong move, and Iris could shut him out. Forever. He could not risk anything going wrong. So, rechecked everything. Once, twice, one more time before he headed out the door. He parked outside Iris's place at 6:30 p.m., sitting in his car for 15 minutes. He didn't want to seem too desperate. Even though he was painfully aware that he was desperate. Iris opened the door to him carrying everything a Michelin star chef, like he called himself, might need. He was dressed impeccably. A pair of designer jeans that Iris swore were tailored just for him, a fitted black t-shirt that revealed every ripple of muscle, and sneakers that cost more than most people's monthly income, smelling of leather and smoke. Her breath caught in her throat. "Hi," she said, immediately noticing how husky her voice sounded. It took him a moment to respond. The sexiness of her simplicity caught him off guard. She wore cut-off jean shorts, a deep purple t-shirt, no makeup, no shoes, her skin glowing under the artificial lights. His body tightened, and he shifted slightly, trying to hide the desire rising within him, averting his eyes. "Hi," he managed on his second attempt to speak. She stepped aside, giving him room to enter. "Your place is nice," he said. "Thanks," Iris replied. Since her divorce from Terrance, Iris had found the perfect condo in the Gulch neighborhood. She chose it for its high-end restaurants and vibrant nightlife, ideal for entertaining clients, and it was only about 20 minutes from Alicia's place. She didn't want her space to remind her of the soft, neutral color scheme she'd shared with Terrance, so she went completely on the far end of the spectrum, bold, fearless, and vibrant. Her 2,000-square-foot condo reflected the new her, confident and unafraid to stand out. Rich jewel tones dominated the decor: deep emerald green, royal blue, amethyst purple, and ruby red. Brass hardware, fixtures, and decorative accents added a touch of elegance. Nothing like what she'd ever picked out in the past, but now, her style was bold and unapologetic. Her living room featured a plush velvet sofa in deep emerald, adorned with a mix of patterned pillows in contrasting colors: gold, purple, and red. Afrocentric and abstract art pieces in bold hues decorated the walls, complemented by a Persian rug in jewel tones with gold accents, grounding the space with richness and warmth. In the dining area, a sleek, modern table with brass legs was paired with upholstered chairs in matching deep emerald green. Her bedroom was a sanctuary of luxury: an upholstered headboard in metallic fabric, layered bedding in bold purple, red, and teal, accented with textured throws and pillows. Metallic accents, decorative mirrors, and inspiring quotes in stylish frames added personality. Greenery in colorful pots brought life and freshness throughout her home. This was her space now, a reflection of her fearless, vibrant spirit. Situated at the island in her kitchen, Iris sat silently, amused at the thought of the Terrance she once knew. Someone different from the man now standing before her. But here he was, in her kitchen, wearing a cheesy kiss the chef apron, pouring her a glass of wine with a confident grin. "Get ready," Terrance said, his voice filled with certainty. "Your taste buds and your stomach are about to be blown away." She chuckled softly. "Or my stomach will be pumped," she teased with a mischievous smile. He placed a hand over his heart. "Ouch," he said with a grin. She watched as Terrance moved through her kitchen like a man who knew exactly what he was doing, The aromas wafting through the air were intoxicating, rich, warm, familiar. They reminded Iris of Nashville. Home, comfort, family. For several seconds, she experienced a whirlwind of emotions, things she couldn't quite name, swirling inside her. Then, unexpectedly, she found herself asking, why? Her voice was soft but firm, carrying the weight of years of pain. Terrance froze. He didn't turn immediately, but then he slowly looked at her, his face unreadable. He took a deep breath, held it, and let it out slowly. She pressed on, her voice trembling slightly. Why did you cheat on me? Why did you act like it was my fault? Why did you make me feel like I was nothing more than some disposable accessory, instead of your wife? Her body trembled involuntarily. Her eyes lowered, hands fidgeting in her lap. Her whole frame was tense, vulnerable and raw. Terrance drew another breath. He knew he would have to face these questions someday. He had rehearsed what he would say. But now, standing before her, his mind was blank. His legs felt weak, his throat constricted. He hesitated, then finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. I did what? No. Say the words, he told himself. I cheated on you. I treated you like an accessory, because I believed I was entitled. He paused, struggling to find the words, then continued with a heavy sigh. I was raised in an environment where wealth and power meant autonomy, the freedom to do whatever I wanted, to act without consequence. People in my world were tools to be used at my discretion. I believed men operated through intimidation, manipulation and violence to get what they wanted. I didn't know how to be supportive, let alone nurturing or protective. I saw how my father treated the women in his life. Terrance's voice grew raw, filled with memories he rarely voiced aloud, how he'd have affairs, did not bother to use discretion, and how he'd intimidate his mistresses into ending pregnancies. I watched him use his fists to keep my mother and me in line. I patterned my life after what I saw in him, he admitted, voice trembling. I didn't realize how wrong and evil my actions were, until I replayed the brokenness I saw in you that night. I told you about Sandra. The mention of her name caused Iris to recoil physically. Her eyes closed, tears streaming down her face. She was exhausted, so exhausted she couldn't hide her raw, wounded emotions. Her pain, her still healing wounds all laid bare. Terrance instinctively wanted to go to her, to hold her, to promise that if given the chance, he would never hurt her in that way again. But fear held him back. He didn't know if she would accept his sincere, but imperfect, attempt at comfort. He stood there, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, every emotion, sorrow, regret, fear, plain on his face. His eyes brimmed with pain. Baby, he whispered, voice thick with emotion. I promise you, I am sorry. Hurting you has been the nightmare I've been living since you left. I would give everything I have to undo the pain I caused you. I caused us. I'm sorry, he said, broken and raw, tears now streaming freely down his face. Iris was looking at him. Really looking at him. For the first time in a long while. She had known him for 10 years, dated him for 2, and been married to him for 4.5. Yet, in this moment she had never seen this side of him. Raw, vulnerable, remorseful. She admitted that the meeting they had in the studio lobby was close, but the Terrance standing before her now was a man who had been forced to look into a mirror and confront himself, to examine the parts of him he had long avoided. She didn't know much about his family. He'd never spoken of them in detail, not in terms of who they were, only a vague acknowledgement of their existence. She realized she didn't even know what they meant to him. She didn't know what to do with this new, unguarded version of him. Her voice caught in her throat, and she heard herself whisper, "Thank you." He offered her a weak, almost forced smile, then hesitated before his legs moved, carrying him over to her. Carefully he reached for her hand, looked into her eyes, and spoke with a sincerity that shook her to her core. Iris, he began softly, it's not lost on me, the toll it takes on you to allow me into your life, to spend time with me. I know it's not easy. I want you to know that I am grateful for every moment you let me share this space with you. He took a deep breath, swallowed hard, and then, with all the love and pain he could muster, he said it. I love you. I never stopped loving you. I want you, no, I need you, in my life. Not just as a friend, but as my woman, my wife. I want to share everything with you, he continued, voice trembling. I want to nurture your dreams, protect your insecurities, destroy your fears, inspire your ambitions. I want you to be the first person I see when I wake up, the last I speak to before I sleep. I want to hold you, love you, cherish you. I want us to have children, lots of them. I want us to plant roots, build foundations, and create a new us, the us of the future. Not the us of the past, but the new us, where I know how to love, honor, protect, and cherish the gift of you." Terrance stood there, his body almost limp from releasing the weight of his passion. He took a shaky breath, then softly added, "I'm sorry, Iris. I didn't mean to unleash all of this on you today." She gently withdrew her hands from his, giving him a tender, reassuring smile. "Terrance," she finally managed, voice steady despite the storm inside her. "That's a lot for me to process." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "The last several months have been new to me. I'm still trying to navigate what this is. What we are. I'm trying to understand this whirlwind of emotions inside me. I need time, Terrance. I need time to figure out how to piece this all together." He nodded, understanding, a quiet acceptance in his eyes. "I understand," he whispered. With that, he turned back to preparing dinner, leaving her standing there, trying to process everything that had just happened. The dinner was nothing short of extraordinary. Hot chicken, cabbage salad, mac and cheese, honey cornbread, and blueberry-infused lemonade. Every bite was heaven. Iris found herself going back for seconds of everything, savoring each flavor. "You don't have to say anything," Terrance said, grinning as he watched her lick her fingers. "That says it all." She rolled her eyes, trying to hide her smile. "Whatever," she muttered, on the verge of bursting with laughter. But inside, she knew this night, the raw honesty, the love, the pain, was only the beginning of a new chapter. One step at a time, she reminded herself. "Take your time to find your way," she thought. Terrance began to clear the table. Iris reached out gently. "You don't have to do that. Leave it. I'll get it," she said softly. He shook his head with a gentle smile. "No, I promise you dinner, and that includes the cleanup. So sit back and let me do my thing." Adjusting herself on the couch, Iris turned on some music, an old R&B station, and listened as Terrance worked in the kitchen. The soft hum of the tunes filled the room, wrapping around them like a warm blanket. She called out playfully, "A girl can get used to this. Good meal, good company, and don't have to wash dishes afterward." Terrance peeked his head from around the corner, grinning. "Your wish is my command, my queen," he said with a mock bow, making her laugh. He finished in the kitchen, putting away dishes and gathering his last utensils and spices. Iris stood slightly behind him as he prepared to leave. Suddenly, one of her favorite songs started to play, "You Don't Have to Cry" by Renee and Angela. He paused, turned, and wrapped his arms around her. Without a word, he began to sway to the music. At first, she was stiff, resisting, not responding. But he gently guided her, moving her back and forth, refusing to let her retreat into herself. Slowly, she began to hum along, leaning her full weight into him. Her body softened, and her resistance melted away. His eyes closed, savoring the feel of her in his arms. They swayed together, locked in that embrace until the song ended. He knew he needed to let go, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she remained in his hold, their bodies still pressed close. He felt her heartbeat quicken, her breath catching in her chest, her heat rising to meet his. He gently cupped her face, his thumbs brushing her cheeks as he looked into her eyes. For several seconds, neither of them spoke, only their gazes saying everything. Then, slowly, he lowered his head and kissed her hard, passionately, without asking, letting their desires carry them. A small moan escaped her lips as she wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him closer. His hands explored her body, frustrated by the barrier of clothing that separated them. "Baby," he managed, voice trembling, "you have to stop. I'm not strong enough. Please let me go if you want me to stop." His words sounded desperate, like a plea. Her eyes fluttered open, her breath hitching. Words failed her, so instead she arched her body toward him, her lips seeking his once more. She brought his head down to hers in a fiery kiss, allowing every emotion, the longing, the love, the raw need, to fuel the moment. He groaned softly and carried her to the sofa, their bodies pressed together. Slowly, he removed her clothes, each movement filled with reverence, his eyes drinking in her beauty. His lips left a trail of fiery kisses across her skin as he confessed his love, admitting he had dreamed of this moment for so long. They made love on the sofa, worshipping each other, declaring their love, and making promises of tomorrow. In that moment, nothing else existed but the two of them, their hearts beating in unison, trusting that this love, not like the last time, had substance, was real, and that they would face whatever came next, together. The next morning, Terrance and Iris awoke to knocking at her door. Somewhere during the night, he had carried her to her bedroom, intending for them to drift back to sleep, but his body had other plans, desire still pulsing through him, and he found himself powerless against it. They had made love again, this time slow, deliberate, still filled with whispered confessions of love and promises to face tomorrow together. As they lay intertwined, Iris's moan broke the quiet. "Oh man, it's Alicia," she whispered. Terrance's lips twitched into a playful grin. "Don't you try it," Iris warned, her voice teasing. "Stay here, I'll get rid of her." She slipped out of bed, threw on her robe and headed toward the door. Just before stepping out she turned, raising a finger to her lips with a playful shush and a warning look. Terrance gave her an innocent look, resting his hand behind his head, amused. Alicia entered into the condo like a hurricane, talking a mile a minute. "Girl, where you been?" Alicia exclaimed. "I've been calling you all last night. You didn't answer your phone, didn't respond to my texts, didn't listen to my voice note. What have you been up to?" She headed toward the kitchen. "Are we going or not?" she asked. "I can't stay too long at the gym because Kenji and I have some plans later. So why aren't you dressed yet?" Alicia finally turned her gaze to Iris. "I told you I'd be here at 8 o'clock. It's already 8 to 15, and you're not ready. Go get dressed, let's go." Iris hesitated, then shook her head. I'm not feeling well. I think I'll have to take a rain check if you don't mind," she lied. Alicia's brow furrowed. "You're not feeling well? What's wrong?" she asked, walking closer, hand raised to check Iris's forehead. She touched Iris's skin gently, then shook her head with a smirk. "Girl, you don't have a fever, you're just avoiding the workout. Go put your clothes on, we're leaving. Ain't nobody got time to be playing today." "I'll catch up later," Iris said softly. "Maybe tomorrow, or later this week." Alicia's eyes narrowed. "So, let me get this straight. You let me come all the way over here just to tell me you're not coming?" Her voice edged with suspicion. "Something's up with you. You're not acting right." "Spill, Mom," she demanded. Just then Terrance's voice spilled from Iris's room, full of laughter. "She's trying to get rid of you so she can come back here and get in bed with me," he teased, his voice booming with laughter. The sound of his laughter echoed through the condo, and Alicia stopped dead in her tracks, her eyes narrowed. "Ma'am," she turned dramatically toward Iris. "Who is that? What am I hearing?" Iris's cheeks flushed as she tried to hide her grin. She was shaking her head, no. Begging Alicia not to start, begging her to stop whatever she was going to do next. Terrance's voice called out again, still laughing. "It's me, Terrance, the happiest man in the world," he said, barely managing to keep from bursting into more laughter. Alicia stared, then shook her head with a mix of disbelief and amusement, a smile tugging at her lips, and said, "So I guess you have had your workout already," and she paused. "Legs are officially open, I am assuming." "Okay girl, I am going to let you have this, for now. But tomorrow we are doing brunch and I want details," she said, finally cracking a grin. "And I am talking blow by blow," she added, gyrating her hips to ensure Iris understood the details she wanted to hear. Iris giggled. "Leave, I will see you tomorrow." Iris stood in her living room for a moment, trying to piece together the events of the past 24 hours into manageable chunks. Her mind was still reeling from everything, yet she felt him before he even spoke. Terrance walked up behind her. She felt the heat of him before he softly said, "Good." Before he could finish, she spun around, hands on her hips, eyes narrowed. "What part of shush don't you understand?" she snapped, though her lips twitched with amusement. He grinned, eyes full of mischief. "The bed was getting cold. I was missing you." "It was taking too long," he replied, sounding like a little boy who was defending his actions in the principal's office. Iris repeated his words slowly, her voice turning colder, yet tinged with something softer beneath it. "Taking too long, missing you. You are impossible," she said, mock irritation slipping through her tone. He took a step toward her, feeling the heat radiating between them. "I know," he murmured, leaning in just enough so she could see the desire burning in his eyes. Without warning, he kissed her, immediately responding to her lips meeting his in a fiery embrace. He muttered a profanity under his breath, his voice thick with longing. "You're killing me," he rasped, before, in one swift motion, carrying her into her bedroom. Their lovemaking was complete, each one giving the other what they needed, and what they desire. 1 hour later, they still lay tangled in each other's arms, breathless and intertwined. "We're having brunch with your mother today," he said matter-of-factly, breaking the silence. Her body stiffened, confusion and alarm flickering across her face. She sat up slightly, eyes narrowing as she looked at him. "When did this come about?" she asked, voice cautious. He loosened his hold just enough for her to sit up and meet his gaze. "Last week," he answered softly, her eyes widened. "Last week," she echoed, incredulous. "I spoke to my mother at least 3 times last week. She didn't say anything about this." He shrugged, a knowing smile playing on his lips. "I know," he said quietly. Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean, you know?" He chuckled softly, a flicker of mischief in his eyes. "I mean I know," he replied, a mischievous grin stretching across his face. She paused, her mind racing to find the words. Finally she asked, "So, how long have you and my mother been talking?" She hesitated, unsure of what to call it. Plotting, aligning. After a moment, she settled on a single word: talking. "Since the night we met in the studio lobby," he said softly. Iris's eyes widened in full panic mode. "That was months ago," she calculated, her voice a few octaves higher than normal. "Yeah," he confirmed calmly. "Yeah?" she shot back, her mind racing. "Is that all you have to say?" He looked at her with a mixture of amusement and patience. "What do you want me to say?" he asked casually. "I want to know what you and my mother have been talking about all these months, and why neither of you felt the need to tell me," she demanded, her voice still higher than normal, but the surprise not as present. Gently he pulled her back beside him, though she resisted just a little, but truthfully, she longed to be in his arms again. He began softly. "I realized the night you left that I was a fool, that I made the biggest mistake of my life. But I wasn't ready, or maybe I just didn't know how to face it." He paused, taking a breath. "About a year ago I was on a date, sitting across from this woman," he said, his tone turning contemplative. Feeling her tense, he tightened his hold on her. "I looked at her, her body tense, her face eager, and I couldn't help but compare her to you. And she fell short in every category as every other woman I had dated. On that date, I decided I had to get you back, at least try, and if all else failed, I wanted to make amends," he said softly. "I knew you and your mother are close, and I realized I had hurt her by how I treated you. So I knew I had to make things right with her first. Because the last thing I wanted was to put you in a position where you'd be at odds with her if we were to get back together." That statement made Iris snuggle closer to him. He paused, then continued. "So, after a couple of glasses of liquid courage, I called her and asked for a meeting. She agreed because, as she put it, she had a bone to pick with me." Iris chuckled. "How did that go for you?" He gave her a small smile. "Let's just say I'd rather endure a prostate exam with Edward Scissorhands than go through that again." Iris burst out laughing, the tension easing from her shoulders. He added, "We talked weekly. She asked questions, gave her opinion, and finally told me she gave me her blessing to pursue you. But she warned me, reminded me, of the danger I'd be in if I hurt you again." He looked at her with all the seriousness of a man who accepted his fate. "I've never been so scared of anyone in my life than I was by that tiny, soft-spoken woman who's barely 5 foot tall." Iris smiled softly. "Your fears are validated," she simply confirmed. "Baby, I have to go," he announced reluctantly. "We're meeting your mother at 2:30 p.m. I need to get dressed and come back to pick you up." "Where are we meeting her?" Iris asked. "At her house," Terrance responded. "In that case I can meet you there," Iris offered. "No, I'll be back at 2 o'clock to get you," he said, walking toward the bathroom and closing the door behind him, signaling that the matter was settled. At 2:20 p.m., Terrance pulled his black Lamborghini Urus in front of Virginia Wellington's apartment. Iris had moved her from the subsidized housing project, her 3rd year at Prism Pulse label. Her mother had protested at first, but once she saw the apartments, the pool, the art room, and the theater at the Pentacle, she finally relented. "You deserve this, Mama," Iris said softly, and she meant it. After her father's death, she watched her mother work 2, sometimes 3 jobs: school cafeteria worker, school bus driver, and office cleaner, to make ends meet. Despite living in subsidized housing, the ends always seemed to find a way of missing each other, but her mother had always gone the extra mile for Iris. When she saw her love for music, she made sure Iris had music lessons. She also enrolled her in dance classes and found a way for her to attend summer camps, places where Iris could nurture her passions and dream beyond their circumstances. When Iris was struggling with her German, which threatened her GPA, A tutor showed up at their tiny apartment the next week, so the decision to move her mother into the Pentacle was a no-brainer for Iris. It was the least she could do for her mother, who carried the weight of struggle and disappointment with grace. "Hi, Mum." Terrance greeted her enthusiastically as he approached. "Hi, son," her mother replied with a beaming smile. Iris's eyes widened in surprise. "Mum? Son? Since when?" she thought, observing them with the cool, keen eye of someone who had her own bone to pick. Throughout Iris' marriage, her mother had been Mrs. Wellington, and he was Terrance or that man, depending on the conversation. Now it was mum and son, a connection that felt so natural, so real, it left Iris momentarily stunned. "Hi, darling," her mother said, pulling Iris into a warm embrace. Iris stepped back, her face full of judgment. "Hi, Mum," she mimicked Terrance, her tone playful but edged with curiosity. Her mother gave her an innocent look, and then turned her attention toward Terrance, who was in the kitchen, checking out the mini-feast Virginia had prepared. "Oh, I made the hot chicken too," Terrance announced. "How was it?" her mother asked. "I'm not going to name names," he said with a grin. "But somebody had seconds and licked their fingers instead of using a napkin." Both him and her mother shot her an accusing look. "I didn't make it as hot as yours," he continued. "I'm not grown enough for that yet." "No worries," her mother said with a satisfied grin. "Keep hanging with me, and you'll get there." Iris shook her head and muttered, "That is it. It is official. I'm in the twilight zone." Both Terrance and her mother looked at her as if she was speaking another language, then returned to their comfortable conversation, as if Iris wasn't even there. The rest of the visit was a blur for Iris. She was in a state of shock and amazement at how at ease her mother and Terrance had become with each other. Every now and then, one of them would turn to her as if remembering she was present and inquire about her well-being or her opinion on the topic at hand. The scene reduced Iris to monosyllabic responses and a constant look of astonishment. At the end of the visit, her mother hugged her tightly and said, "You will be all right. He's a good man and he loves you. Don't let the past destroy your future. I love you, darling." On the ride back to Iris's condo, the car was silent. Terrance didn't feel the need to fill the space with words. He gave her time and space to absorb everything. Once they arrived at her place, he stepped out, opened her door, something else she had to get used to. The old Terrance would just get out of the car, and it was up to her to keep up. "Baby, are you okay?" he asked with genuine concern in his eyes. "Yes, I'm trying to process everything," she replied. "Everything seems to be moving so fast." He paused for a moment. "I understand how you might feel that way. I don't want to rush or pressure you, but I want you to know. I plan on marrying you soon. Iris, you are the only thing I can't live without." He took her hand gently. "Money, power, reputation, cars, houses, those are all replaceable. But you're my air, my world. The only thing that grounds me, the thought of you not being mine terrifies me. I love you, Iris, with all of me, in every part of my being." Iris looked at him, seeing the man who had been intentional about her, who loved her, who did the work to become a better man for her. Without warning, she leaned in and kissed him. "I love you too," she whispered. In that moment she felt all the tension, all the doubt, leave him. He muttered a profanity under his breath, "You're killing me, girl," before returning her kiss with all the passion and love he carried. At some point, Iris didn't know exactly when or how, but Terrance talked her into going home with him. Again, she found herself sitting in his car, completely confused at how this man had made her forget her boundaries and bend to his will, without any force, just with his words, his presence, and his undeniable sincerity. "I thought we were going to your house," Iris asked hesitantly. "Yes, we are," he replied. Confused, she looked at him. "You live in Belmead?" "Not anymore," he said softly. "Since when?" she pressed. "Since that concert," he explained. "When you said the house brought back so many disappointing and hurtful memories." She looked at him, surprised. "So the next week, I put it on the market and moved into one of my apartments. When we get married, we can look for a house for us." "What?" Iris was stunned. "You did what again?" "I sold the house," he said simply. "It brought back bad memories for you, and to be honest, it did for me as well. I sold it about 2 months ago. I'll build us a bigger house, one big enough for our 5 children, and your mum." Iris just looked at him, shook her head, and smiled. "5 children, huh?" "Yep," he said with a grin. The next day, Terrance dropped Iris off at the restaurant where she was meeting Alicia. Iris recounted everything. him selling his home, the visit with her mother, and the incredible nights they shared. Alicia sat at the edge of her chair, taking it all in like a child watching their favorite cartoon. Forever the lawyer, Alicia asked 1,000 questions, probing for every detail. After she was satisfied, she asked Iris one last question. Are you happy? A smile came automatically, and Iris felt her cheeks flush. Yes, extremely, she replied. With that, both women let out a joyful scream and embraced each other tightly, their happiness overflowing. When they finally broke apart, Iris noticed tears streaming down Alicia's face. Oh no, why are you crying? She asked, her own tears beginning to flow. I'm so happy for you, Alicia whispered. You deserve all the happiness in the world. You're an amazing person, Iris, and I love you, girl. They sat there for a moment, smiling through their tears, letting their emotions tell the story of their genuine love for each other and friendship. Hours later, Iris called Terrance to let him know she was ready. He told her he was outside. How long have you been here? She asked. Since I dropped you off, he replied with a smile. I've been here for 3 hours, she said. You've been waiting for me for 3 hours? Yes, he said softly. I didn't want to risk getting caught in traffic when you called, so I waited. Iris's lips curled into a shy smile. She glanced at Alicia and quietly whispered, God, I love this man. Just then, Terrance pulled up, got out of the SUV, and as he walked around to open the door for Iris, he noticed the remnants of shed tears on both women's faces. He decided to let them keep their secrets, and chose not to inquire. As he reached for the door handle, Alicia stopped him. She hugged him tightly and whispered in his ear, Thank you. He offered her a warm smile, nodded his head in acknowledgement, and continued helping Iris into the SUV. Iris rolled down her window and called after Alicia, Miss Ma'am, don't think you're off the hook. I want a full report on you and Mr. Kenji next Sunday. Alicia gave her a coy smile, winked, and then turned to walk to her car. Today could not come fast enough for Terrance. 13 months ago, he was sitting across the table from a woman who was unknowingly failing in a competition she didn't even realize she was in. Now he was nervously waiting for the love of his life to walk down the aisle, so they could profess their love before 75 of their closest family and friends. His first proposal had been nothing like this. It wasn't romantic or grand, just him showing up at her apartment handing her a box with a ring that was 2 sizes too big. No kneeling, no music, no long speech, just, I think it's time we get married. The first wedding, however, was a different story. It was a celebration, a statement. He had invited influential people, those with the right connections. 600 guests in all, and the event was the talk of the town. His arrogance and wealth were on full display. But this time, it was different. He proposed during what she thought was a vacation in Fiji, surrounded by both of their mothers, Kenji and Alicia. Music, flowers, tears, mostly his, he admitted, culminating in the most stunning diamond ring with a platinum band she had ever seen. Her words, not his. On the way back home, Kenji looked at Terrance with a grin and said, Man, you're making it hard for a brother. Alicia, taking it all in, burst out laughing and told Terrance, I'm happy for you, man. As she began to walk down the aisle, Terrance's heart pounded with anticipation. Today, everything was different. Beyond wealth, beyond status, beyond the marketing campaign. It was love, pure and undeniable, finally coming full circle. The September sun cast a warm, golden glow over the lush gardens, outside a charming venue in Nashville, Tennessee. Rich hues of deep burgundy, vibrant gold, and emerald green adorned the outdoor space. Floral arrangements bursting with color, draping fabric, and elegant lanterns swaying gently in the breeze. The air was filled with anticipation, love, and a touch of nervous excitement as 75 guests gathered to witness the union of 2 souls. Iris looked up at him, her eyes shimmering with tears. Her voice trembled with emotion as she recited her vows, and when she looked into his eyes, her tears spilled over, streaking her cheeks. Terrance, overwhelmed, couldn't hold back his own tears. He cried openly, his voice thick with emotion, as he watched her, radiant and vulnerable. The guests, moved by the pure sincerity of the moment, wiped tears from their eyes. Among them, Alicia, her best friend, maid of honor, tears streaming down her face, her heart swelling with joy and love for her friends. She cried unabashedly, feeling every word, every promise, every ounce of the love that filled the air. The ceremony was intimate and heartfelt, the kind that lingered in the memories of everyone present. As they exchanged rings and shared their first kiss as a married couple, the sky transitioned to a stunning display of sunset colors, rich oranges and pinks blending into the deepening blue of dusk. It was a perfect, unforgettable celebration of love in the heart of Nashville, filled with emotion, vibrant colors, and the promise of a new beginning. Iris and Terrance stood hand in hand on the balcony of their luxurious resort, overlooking the Nile River. The sun was setting, casting a warm, golden hue over the ancient city of Cairo. The air was filled with the scent of blooming jasmine and the distant hum of life bustling below. They had traveled halfway across the world to this timeless land, where history and mystery intertwined. The pyramids loomed majestically in the distance, silent witnesses to centuries of secrets and stories. As they looked out over the legendary monuments, Terrance gently pulled Iris closer. "This," he whispered, "is everything I imagined, and more because I'm here with you." Iris leaned into him, her heart full. "It's like stepping into a dream," she replied softly. "I never thought I'd be here sharing this moment with you, surrounded by history, love, and the promise of forever." They shared a quiet moment, the kind that words couldn't capture. The stars began to twinkle overhead, mirroring the sparkle in their eyes. As the night fell, they wandered through the bustling streets and markets, their laughter mingling with the sounds of Egypt, an unforgettable adventure, a love story written beneath the desert sky. In that moment, amid ancient wonders and new beginnings, Iris and Terrance knew their journey was just beginning. And whatever the future held, they would face it together, with love, strength, and a shared dream of forever. And that brings us to the end of Iris and Terrance's journey today. If you haven't had the pleasure of exploring their beginnings, I encourage you to check out the story. I promise you won't be disappointed. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time with me, my cultured pearls. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up, and share it with someone who appreciates the beauty of our blended traditions. Our quest to grow our channel can only be achieved with your incredible support. Every like, share, and subscribe truly means the world to us, and allows us to continue bringing you these incredible stories of love. Before you go, I want to hear from you. What part of today's narrative resonated with you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let me know what part of the world you are joining us from. Until next time, keep celebrating the authenticity of love and heritage. Bye for now.